So I don't think anybody out there is surprised to see Coach Prime in Colorado attack the transfer portal. This is something we've talked about at length here on the channel, and we've anticipated that Colorado would have a lot of success in getting guys out of the portal, and they absolutely have. Today, we need to break down two new additions that are heading to Colorado via the transfer portal, and we also need to break down this transfer portal class for Colorado as it currently sits, because currently it's a top 5 class in transfer portal acquisitions, something I don't think is set to change. But before we can break into all of this, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you happy with the transfer portal haul Coach Prime currently has? And let me know your favorite addition. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And we're on a push to see how close we can get to 20,000 subscribers before the new year. I know it's an absurd goal, but the support y'all have shown has been unbelievable, and I would love nothing more than to have you a part of this incredible community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And first and foremost, we need to talk about Jeremiah Brown, the linebacker who's transferring from Jackson State to reunite with Coach Prime in Colorado. And this could be an addition that flies under the radar. Brown was a very productive player while at Jackson State, amassing over 50 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, and 7 sacks. And though he's listed as a linebacker, this is more of an outside linebacker type, someone who you can put and rush as an edge rusher and still have them create a lot of chaos. And if you're Colorado, that's exactly what you want on your defense. These guys who are linebackers who you can utilize as an edge rusher and have them wreak havoc. Great addition. I think this is one that's really going to fly under the radar. They're getting guys that look to contribute, and I'm excited to see it. And Jeremiah Brown is absolutely a name to watch. But he was not the only big addition that Coach Prime in Colorado got out the transfer portal. In fact, not long after the Jeremiah Brown news broke that Leonard Payne is also set to transfer from Fresno State to Colorado. The defensive lineman who stands 6'3" and 308 pounds. And this is continuing to answer the question so many of you have asked me in the comments. What is Coach Prime in Colorado going to do to address the trenches? And if we look into the future at the class of 2024, they have a blue chip 4-star guy, Omar White, who the other day I contended was as big of a recruiting win as Coach Prime has gotten since he's been head coach of Colorado. Remember, I separate transfer portal wins and recruiting wins into separate categories. And I think the Omar White win is huge, even though Coach Prime has already pulled a 5-star in the class of 2025. So the big question I have for all of you: can Coach Prime in Colorado maintain a top 5 class in transfer portal acquisitions? And I'm going to go ahead and give my answer right now. Super interested in still hearing from yours. I don't see why not. Whenever we look at the additions Colorado has already got in, I think they're addressing a lot of needs this team has, and they're doing so with guys that either A, they have familiarity with, or B, are going to fit into the scheme they're looking to run. I think that's a very positive thing. On top of that, one thing I've talked about at length: this is only the first window of the transfer portal, and it hasn't even closed yet. After spring practices, guys on these teams, they're going to have a much better understanding of where they sit on the depth chart. Once those guys have an understanding of where they really sit on the depth chart going into the 2023 season, we're going to see another wave of guys hitting the transfer portal, at which point Coach Prime in Colorado can have their pickings once again. I'm super intrigued because this Colorado class, from a transfer portal standpoint, it's a top 5 class, and there's still guys they could go out and get. And they've already had some blue chip guys add themselves into this recruiting class. Colorado is making waves right now, and Coach Prime is absolutely riding a high on hype. They have a lot of traction heading their way for Kermani McClain, the number 1 defensive back in the nation, a top 5 player, and that's absolutely a situation we have got to keep up with. But I'm super interested in keeping up with the transfer portal acquisitions, because when I look top to bottom, I think you have to be very pleased. Let's quickly run through the list real quick. You have Leonard Payne, the defensive lineman who we talked about this video. I think that's a great addition. Getting in a guy that's 6'3", 308 pounds, that has college football experience, that you can come plug up on that defensive line, I think that's going to be great for the Buffaloes. To get Jeremiah Brown, I think that's an addition that's going to fly under the radar, but in the short sample size we have of Jeremiah Brown, he's a very productive player. Really interested to see how that continues with Colorado. Alejandro Mata, the kicker from Jackson State, transferring to Colorado. Love that. The punter from Louisville, Mark Vassett, going to Colorado. Seydou Traore, a tight end who is largely unknown to college football fans, but make no mistake, that is going to change. I think this is one of the bigger wins Colorado has gotten out of the transfer portal. If you go and watch what Traore does well, he is going to be an utter mismatch for defenses. He played wide receiver in high school, and something really cool about him, he's a part of the PPI Recruits, which is head by Brandon Collier. If you're not familiar with what they do, it's genuinely awesome. They go to Europe, they go to different countries, find guys that could make it in high school football in America, bring them over here and give them a chance to get an education and play college football. I think it's awesome. And if you want to know some names that have been attributed to Brandon Collier and PPI, Hero Canoe took the nation by storm, and I actually made a video on him, and he is a fantastic football player, has a fantastic future. But PPI Recruits by Brandon Collier, it's absolutely something that ever since I became aware of it, I've been following their moves. And Seydou Traore comes from PPI, very excited to see what he's able to do. Like I said, was a wide receiver in high school, made the transition to tight end, which means he's going to be an utter mismatch for your linebackers, for your safeties. If he's able to develop his blocking, this is going to be a guy you got to keep your eye on. But speaking of guys you got to keep your eye on, Jimmy Horn Jr., the wide receiver from UCF, going to Colorado, and this is just a straight-up win. Horn Jr. is a playmaker. He runs a sub-11-second 100-meter dash. He is going to be a thorn in the side of Pac-12 defenses, especially with Sean Lewis. This is a guy that can do it all. Whether we're talking about getting him involved in the short passing game, the intermediate passing game, the long passing game, punt return, kick return, you name it, he is an absolute football player. This is the type of guy that can take a drag route 95 yards. And a defense has to account for those type of players. It really is a different scenario entirely when you have a wide receiver with his capabilities and you're a defensive guy planning for that. You really have to change the way you do everything because you realize that guy, if he gets an inch, he'll take it a mile. I'm so excited to see what the future holds for him. Marshawn Nealon, the edge, I think is going to be a guy that's really fun to watch. 6'4", 275 pounds. We made a video on him whenever he committed, but once again, I think that Coach Prime is doing a lot of good work along the defensive line, both at the edge positions, at the interior. I'm very excited to see how it all comes to fruition, especially when we look, and Nick Williams is going to be coaching that interior defensive line. Nick Williams is a name that I find really interesting in college football. The traction he generated as an analyst at Georgia carried over to A&M, where he was very successful in helping them land some big-name guys, and already, while at Colorado, he and Charles Kelly teamed up to get Omar White, a massive win for the Buffaloes. Once again, I think it's one of their biggest. If we keep on going, Cameron Sillman, the safety from Jackson State, transfers from Jackson State to Colorado, reuniting with Coach Prime, an individual that Coach Prime has familiarity with. He's already coached him up. Love that addition. The biggest addition in the transfer portal by far is Travis Hunter. And that's not to minimize any of these other guys. Travis Hunter's just a generational talent. He'd be the biggest transfer portal haul for any institution in the nation right now, and there is no question about it. So getting him in is an absolute win. 6'1", 165 pounds per 24/7 Sports. This is someone who can do it all. Whether we're talking wide receiver, defensive back, he has got a ton of ability. I'm really excited to see what he does on a Power 5 level. If we continue, Tyler Brown, the interior offensive lineman, once again answering the question of what is Coach Prime doing on this offensive line? And they're addressing it. They're getting in guys that are going to run this Sean Lewis system. But one thing I do want to address before we continue going any further, this Sean Lewis system is one that could help if your offensive line isn't a complete picture. Why? Because everything is happening so quickly. You're not asking your quarterback to take a 4-step drop and then be standing back there for 4 seconds reading a defense. It's going to be very quick. It's going to be very decisive, and it's going to put the defense in the position of being the decision maker as opposed to the offense. If that's your offense, you can mitigate some things such as an incomplete offensive line, but it is still great to see the amount of effort they're putting on the offensive line. The next name is going to be a huge one. Deion Sanders. We've talked about him. He put up massive numbers at Jackson State. Genuinely massive numbers. I had someone comment in a video saying if he was in the Power 5, his numbers wouldn't even be top 20. I went through all the numbers in the comments, and he is comfortably within the top 20 in just about every single metric you could imagine. Deion Sanders is the real deal. And for people to think otherwise, well, it's contrary to what he's done his entire career. He's a blue chip 4-star guy coming out of high school, and all we've seen him do at Jackson State is continue to progress. I'm very interested to see how he continues to grow and what he does in this Sean Lewis offense. Next name on our list is Landon Beebe, the offensive lineman. Once again, strengthening that offensive line. Love what Sean Lewis is doing. Love what Coach Prime is doing there. Up next, we have Shane Cokes, defensive lineman, standing 6'4", 220. Once again, good to see what Coach Prime and the staff is doing with these trenches, especially on the defensive side. Super interested to see which one of these new faces is going to be massive contributors next season. Another name in the trenches, Savion Washington, who we've talked about at length, following Sean Lewis from Kent State to Colorado, meaning he already has an innate understanding of this offense. He's going to be big for helping everybody else come along. He stands 6'8", 340 pounds. So someone that massive in this offense, can't wait to see it. And then the final two names we need to go over, and certainly these last two names are not insignificant. First and foremost, Vontae Bentley, the linebacker from Clemson, and this is a huge win. Coming out of high school, this was a 4-star guy that every institution in the nation wanted, and even when he hit the transfer portal, I can imagine he had no shortage of suitors. 6 foot, 233. Bentley's been coached by some great minds in college football on the defensive side of the ball, and because of that, I'm really interested to see the transition he makes. But on top of that, pairing he with a guy such as Jeremiah Brown, I'm really excited to see if those are going to be your two starters. I'm just interested to see who wins all of these position battles, but that's a story and a video for a different day. And then the last name we need to talk about, Tage Alston from West Virginia. Huge win. Once again, a guy that pretty much everybody in the transfer portal wanted this guy. A lot of institutions reached out. I'm very excited to see where this Colorado class ends up, both in terms of recruiting and in terms of transfer portal acquisitions. Not only is signing day still ahead of us, but there's still a whole nother transfer portal window, and I'm really interested to see how Coach Prime and the Buffaloes continue to navigate it. But until that point, hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.